It began as a simple idea. Michael, the CEO of a thriving restaurant chain, decided to go undercover at one of his busiest locations. Before we continue, please take some time to subscribe to Dailydose, like, and share this video. Not for show, not for a marketing campaign, just to understand the heartbeat of his business from the ground level. Disguised as a new employee, he blended in, learning from the people who kept his company alive day in and day out. But what he didn't expect was that a single staff member would lead him into something much deeper than business. Her name was Jenna. Jenna was a waitress, efficient, well-liked, and always in motion, but from the first day, something about her caught Michael's attention. She seemed distracted, her eyes often drifting to the door, as if waiting for someone who never came. Michael, maintaining his undercover role, approached her gently during a lull in service. He asked a simple question if everything was okay. But the moment the words left his lips, Jenna broke down in tears. Startled, Michael stepped back as other employees rushed in to comfort her. Whispers filled the air, glances were exchanged, and in that moment, Michael felt something unexpected: guilt. He had only asked a kind question, but the reaction it triggered and the way others looked at him left him deeply unsettled. A nearby cook approached and quietly reassured him. This wasn't the first time Jenna had reacted like that. Later, Michael turned to Nicole, the restaurant manager and the only one who knew his true identity. She confirmed Jenna's recent decline. For the first 5 months of her employment, Jenna had been a model worker. But then, one day, about a month earlier, everything changed. Her performance plummeted. She became withdrawn, unfocused, and prone to sudden emotional breakdowns. Nicole admitted she was considering letting Jenna go, but Michael wasn't ready to make that call. There was something about Jenna that stirred his instincts not as a CEO, but as a human being. He asked Nicole to pair Jenna with him for the next 2 weeks, assigning her as his training partner. He wanted to understand what had changed, not to reprimand her, but to help her. And quietly, he hoped she might eventually trust him enough to open up. Curious to learn more, Michael checked Jenna's social media accounts. What he found wasn't suspicious, but rather concerning in a different way. Her profiles were nearly empty, recently scrubbed of personal details, filled with only sparse generic posts. It was as if she had erased her digital presence entirely. The next morning, he arrived early at the restaurant. Jenna was already there, preparing for the day with quiet focus. Throughout the shift, she guided him with patience and clarity. Her professionalism and knowledge were impressive clearly. She knew this place inside and out. But still, Michael noticed moments where her energy faltered. She would drift off during brief pauses, as if sleep overtook her in seconds. Her fatigue was alarming. Despite her silence, Michael sensed that she was battling something alone. He refrained from pressing her. Each day, their rapport grew. She trained him diligently, showing him the ropes, laughing occasionally, even seeming like her old self at times. But the undercurrent of something unspoken remained. One night during a late shift, something unsettling happened. Jenna froze completely still, her gaze fixed on the front entrance. It was as if she saw a ghost. Michael observed in silence, watching as she stood motionless for nearly 10 minutes, oblivious to the world around her. When she finally returned to herself, he gently encouraged her to take a break. In the quiet of the break room, something shifted. Jenna began to speak. Her words were guarded, careful. She hinted at a personal crisis, something that had changed everything. She didn't share details, only that a specific incident had made it impossible for her to view the restaurant the same way. Michael didn't press her, he just listened. And in her willingness to speak at all, he found reason to hope. The next day, Jenna didn't come to work. It was then that Michael, with Nicole's help, made a difficult decision. Together, they reviewed the restaurant's security footage, focusing on the moments Jenna seemed most distressed, particularly those tied to her fixation on the front door. That's when they saw something they didn't expect. Late at night, long after the restaurant had closed, Jenna was captured on camera welcoming a visitor, a hooded figure. Their interaction was warm, familiar. They embraced. This wasn't a robbery or a threat, it was personal. The man was given a tour of the restaurant, and later they exited together. Michael and Nicole managed to capture a clear shot of the car's license plate. Through police assistance, the name attached to the vehicle was revealed: Luke Porter. Michael felt conflicted. He had ventured into Jenna's personal life without her knowledge, something he never intended to do. But he also sensed that understanding who Luke was might be the key to helping her. Armed with the address, he drove to Luke's last known residence. The house looked empty. Neighbors confirmed the car hadn't been seen in weeks. And then, in the backyard garden, he saw her. Jenna. She was tending the flowers when she looked up and froze. What was Michael, her trainee, doing in her personal sanctuary? The confrontation was immediate and awkward, but Michael didn't pretend. He was honest with her. This moment, as surreal as it was, marked a turning point in their fragile trust. In the quiet of the garden, Jenna opened up. Michael told her who he really was. And this time, Jenna didn't cry. She just stood there, absorbing the truth. Then she told her own. Luke had been her boyfriend. They kept their relationship quiet, unsure of how it might affect her job. One night, he'd come to visit and insisted on seeing the place where she spent so much of her time. But after that visit, tragedy struck. A car accident. Luke had been driving, intoxicated. He survived, but barely. He was now hospitalized in recovery and facing a long road ahead. Jenna had been by his side, carrying the weight of his career and the guilt ever since. It explained everything: her exhaustion, her absence, her hollow gaze at the restaurant doors. It all made sense. As Jenna stood in the garden, her voice trembled only slightly. The secrecy, the pain, the constant balancing act between work and the hospitality had been too much. And now, with Michael no longer just a coworker but the CEO of the company, she feared it might all come crashing down. But to her surprise, Michael didn't raise his voice. He didn't lecture her about professionalism or missed shifts. He simply listened. And then, he asked how he could help. In that moment, something shifted. The barriers Jenna had built began to fall away, not from pressure, but from kindness. She explained the financial burden she was under, the insurance barely covering Luke's treatment, the mounting debt, and the crushing fear of losing the job she still deeply valued. All of it had left her emotionally exhausted, and it showed. Her mental and physical presence at the restaurant had suffered. She knew it. Everyone did. Michael nodded thoughtfully. It was clear now. She hadn't failed her job out of laziness or indifference, but because she was barely holding her world together. What happened next was not just a decision, but a statement of leadership. Michael made arrangements quietly, without fanfare, to cover Luke's medical bills. Not out of pity, but out of recognition. Recognition that supporting employees wasn't just about performance reviews or profit margins. Sometimes, it was about being human. He ensured Jenna wouldn't have to carry the financial weight of this crisis alone, and he did it without making her feel indebted. With the pressure lifted, Jenna began to breathe again. Her demeanor changed, slowly but noticeably. She started arriving at the restaurant with a clearer head, more focused, more present. Her coworkers sensed the shift too, though few knew the reason behind it. To them, Jenna was just back to her old self, quietly strong, reliable, and kind. Michael never mentioned the garden meeting again. He didn't need to. He simply let Jenna rebuild at her own pace. He watched her reconnect with a job she once loved, and in doing so, he saw the quiet strength that had impressed so many during her early months on the job. He realized that her breakdowns had not been a failure, but the natural consequence of facing immense pressure and silence. And now, she wasn't alone anymore. Weeks passed. Jenna's confidence returned. She began mentoring new staff, just as she had mentored Michael. Her joy, while more measured than before, was genuine. She carried herself with calm assurance, no longer haunted by uncertainty at every shift. Then, one day, she approached Michael not as her CEO, but as the man who would listen. She told him she had spoken to her parents. For the first time, she had opened up about Luke, the accident, the secret visits to the restaurant, and her financial stress. It had been a difficult conversation, filled with tears and hard truths, but in the end, it brought them closer. Her parents, too, offered their support. Jenna was no longer hiding. She was healing. Michael listened quietly, proud in a way few CEOs ever experience, not for what she had done for the company, but for what she had done for herself. He had started this journey to learn about his business from the inside. He had expected to understand scheduling, customer service, maybe even kitchen efficiency. Instead, he had learned something far greater, that a business is only as strong as the people who hold it up. Jenna's story became a quiet legend within the company, shared sparingly, and only when it could help others who found themselves overwhelmed. Michael didn't publicize his actions. He didn't need to. His approach began to shift how other managers led their teams. Compassion became as important as competence. Support was offered before judgment. And within that culture, employees began to thrive not because they were pressured to succeed, but because they were allowed to be human. Looking back, Michael knew he could have easily overlooked Jenna. She could have been just another name on a termination list. But instead, he asked a simple question. "Are you okay?" And when she cried, instead of walking away, he stayed. Because real leadership isn't measured in titles or policies, it's measured in moments like that. The quiet ones. The human ones.